So,
Used to talk. Where was she?
yeah, I saw your mom at a
Yeah.
celebration of life for one of my teacher artist friends. And so we shared a table
Um,
and got a
the
chance
lady
to talk
from
about you a little
Boyertown
bit.
Elementary.
What was
Boyertown
that?
Elementary.
That's
The
right,
lady from
Sandy Wood.
Boyertown Elementary.
Yep,
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
yep, yep, yep.
Okay.
So she got a chance
I,
to share. She wanted to know how we got connected in the first place. So I told her Gary Williams connected us
well,
because you
that.
saw my
Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
with
I was going to say
him.
that first was, well, long time ago,
Well, that was
40
in
years ago.
June. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well,
no, no. I
yeah,
mean, the first one was 40 years ago.
right, right. That was a
Uh,
long time ago. Anyway, so here we are again. I got to, learn a couple of things about what you were doing and how you would never move back to Pennsylvania. So she
well,
knows how
that's
much you like it in Florida.
yeah. I think that came off wrong too when I was on your show. I remember the comment. I don't know. I know it had something to do with my sexuality, but also kind of
Okay.
just like the whole experiencing life thing. And I made the comment that it had that learning these other things was because I got out of Boyertown.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
There
I
is
I think
no
as soon as I
question.
said that,
Yeah.
it
There's
made
no
it sound
question.
like Boyertown was a bad thing, and that's not what I
No,
meant.
no, I
It's
understand.
just
I tell
that,
you what, my husband and I moved to Colorado right after we were married. And
right?
so we lived in Colorado for about 6 years and had an opportunity to see Boyertown in another way. And so I understand kind of what you're doing. Moving back here, back in 1974, because we were ready to start a family, um, was eye opening because Boyertown was about 15 years behind, at least in the education world, what I was doing in Colorado. So I kind of
Wow.
understand. But before we go any further, I'm Jane Stahl.
And I'm Yergz.
And
Welcome, everybody.
welcome to both sides now. So since you mentioned it, even though, I have some things from our last episode that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely.
But since you brought it up, why don't we start with part two and talk about your sexuality? You had
Okay.
said in the
Okay.
last episode that if you had felt safe, this is what I understood. Maybe I understood incorrectly,
Yeah.
so correct me if I'm wrong. But
No, go ahead.
what I understood was that had you felt safer about coming out in high school, you would have done that. So, talk to me a little bit about anything relative to that. How you knew, why you didn't, when you did, and what prompted that. Tell us a little bit about you in that area because one of our loyal listeners is very much interested in talking about this whole arena of sexuality, not just yours, but
Mm,
others in general. But let's start with you. Talk to me a little bit,
okay.
or talk to our audience a little bit about your own awareness of who you are.
Well, from a technical perspective, then I guess here come the college days and single life. I guess you could say technically I'm bisexual,
Okay.
in that I've had plenty of sex with women and loved it, enjoyed it. But when it comes to I'm trying to keep the vocabulary um, uh, Susy Yerger friendly, um,
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
as opposed to just recreational sex compared to lovemaking. I knew that if I did have a wife, I would not be able to stop any sort of what I called then extreme male bonding, and
Okay.
and I knew that wasn't right, based on what I've been taught and already felt. about relationships.
Hmm.
So it kind of, I realized, you simply had to make a decision. And so I lived with a girl for a while. I kind of sort of lived with two. And my girlfriend right before the Secret Service, and actually, while I was technically, just got hired by the Secret Service, lived with me. That ended in disaster. And then a girl that I met right after I got back from training and was now a blessed full flown agent. Um, she lived very close to me, and it was a lot of staying over at
Hmm.
staying over at my house more than her place, and it drove me nuts. I knew that mom would be the only woman as far as what I would be able to live with, and not eventually get carted off to jail.
Okay, wait. It drove you nuts. Let's explore that for a little bit. What does that mean?
Okay. Well, this is that when I say that in conversation, that's the moment when a lot of my straight guy friends say, "You know what? I'm probably gay too because my wife drives me nuts."
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
uh, um, it was, but you meaning the straight guys have a level of comfort and still a level of desire, and I think I just built an unrepairable level of animosity
For what?
that
Makeup
she
on the bathroom counter? Jelly on the toast knife? What does that mean?
um
The
no, because I
animosity.
don't always I don't always have the cleanest kitchen. um I just think I knew that that was not gonna that from a relationship perspective, I'm gay,
Okay.
and that was something that I had to say, because
Can you help me understand what that means though?
well, when you're at that point, mid to late 20s, and for that many number of years, you've been taught that a marriage is between a man and a woman.
Hmm.
Um, I had been, like I said before, outside of Boyertown, and I knew that there were other potentials, and that's, I think, part of the cause of the confusion was, I trust my parents with my life,
Hmm.
and I've got great parents. Every good, well raised kid says they've got the best parents, and
Hmm.
with no disrespect to your parenting, of course, I think that. And JD and Amy also have the best parents. It's very relative, but in that area, they were wrong, and that's okay. So there was something then that, because they had very little or no experience in other lifestyles like that, I had to figure it out for myself, and I was okay. I'm very independent, so I was okay with that too. But then I did, like I said, I had. Sorry, I thought I just heard my dog. Um, I did
You
have
had to
to
make a
figure it out
choice.
for myself. Yeah, and that's a dangerous word right there, because everybody thinks that it is a choice, and that's what was so
Yes.
conflicting in me.
Yes.
That's what's so conflicting in me, was that this isn't I actually just listened to our episode the earlier this weekend, and I was feeling things like that, as a child, when I know absolutely nothing about sexuality.
Hmm.
Mom read us, Cinderella, and I wanted to be Prince Charming because he was a good-looking guy.
Hmm.
And what kid thinks that? Normal straight kid wants to look up Cinderella's dress. Um, so yeah, it was first acceptance of myself, and I think what
And
to go back to comparing that today, I think that parents my age who probably a higher percentage have gone to college, have moved away from home to go to college, and have just experienced those different things, and are exposed. Social media is a huge educator, potentially dangerous one, but still a huge educator. And as a
Yep.
result, I think parents today are more supportive. And again, not that my parents weren't supportive, so much as they're more understanding,
Yeah.
and they're already exposed to it. Um, Sorry about that. They're already exposed to it, so they're more helpful, and so are the other kids as a result. So I mean, I've heard about stories about gay high school or junior high boys good friends with the guys on the football team, and not because he's allowed in the locker room after practice, but just because he's good friends with the football team.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never would have envisioned that if I would have come out, if I would have come out back in when I was in high school.
In other words, had you come out in high
It's
school, you would not have been allowed in the boys' locker room. Is that what you're saying? Do I understand that
I
right?
would have not have been allowed. Well, that in a political sense, but I would say not have been friends with the guys on the football team that I
Okay.
was friends with when I was on the football team, or after when I got more involved in hockey and baseball.
Like there was
Um,
a
it
there was
just it,
there was a line, what do you say, a border, a boundary of something that you would not
yeah,
have been
yeah.
able to cross. Well, it's interesting because one of the things I mentioned to you in our notes, was that, I really, and I didn't, I didn't have gay friends in that I was
Hmm.
aware of, at any rate, in high school or even college, or even beyond that, that had come out. But I have subsequently, developed friendships with gay guys, and it's just so comfortable because you can be
Hmm.
just friends. There's no sexual tension,
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
anywhere, and anywhere. There's no playful flirting. There's no misunderstanding. There's just friendship, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, you know.
Well, with
So,
me, that's kind of the running gag with my neighbors who are very Republican, and for the most part conservative, and that they're either Trump or DeSantis or fans of both on some level. They know, and we are flirtatious because it's funny.
well, that's a
We
different kind of
know
thing.
absolutely nothing's, yeah. There's absolutely nothing going to happen,
Well,
and yeah,
what I like about you is that you are so very, seem to be at least so very comfortable with your sexuality. You're not hiding it at all. And it
I think with
makes
whatever,
life
yeah.
so
Thank you.
much easier because
Yeah,
secrets make you sick.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
that was a good quote you put in the email. That was
well, that comes from the that
that's
comes that comes from the recovery world. Okay.
well, that's something that's making a lot more. See, this is why I said these are actually therapeutic for me, because I'm actually also being treated for PTSD that I never
Whoa.
would have thought that I had.
Yeah.
And um, I was when my doctors told me that at first, that you have anxiety, you have depression, and PTSD. I was offended because I thought about my military colleagues
Hmm.
who, in my words, had real PTSD.
Hmm.
And they said, no, there's different levels. Just like if you have a minor cold, or you have the flu or something like that, or you fractured your leg or actually broke it or shattered it,
Hmm.
um, there are different levels. And when you said just now, and said again, that secrets make you sick, that was my life for 21 years.
Yeah.
and it still is. I
It
still
is.
have to guard things that I know that now that I'm not in that world anymore, I have no business talking about. And I need to know that, or I need to remember what those things are so that I don't. The whole
Mhm.
thing that we talk about in school to learn how to be undercover is that you're living a lie.
Yep.
But anytime you tell a lie, that lie has to now be true. Because, if I say, no, mom, I didn't take that money and I did,
Yep.
I can't come back, a week later and say, here's the $30 I borrowed.
Yep.
I
Yep.
thought you didn't take it.
That's a
Um,
that messes your mind.
and yeah,
And
it's a lot of work.
yep. Yep, it
It's
is.
a
It
lot of
is a lot
work.
of work remembering the lie you told that you now are supposed to assume is true. But let's get back to, I wanted to mention because I think it's really interesting. And well, there are many things, but what you needed to leave Boyertown
Mm.
and you needed to come to terms, let's call it that, come to terms with the fact that your parents were quote unquote wrong about relationships only can sexual relationships can only be between a man and a woman and people have to be married to do that. So you had to leave Boyertown and your family in order to develop who you were and establish your own self based on who you were. But is there a moment that prompted your willingness to be out there?
Um, I don't think a moment so much as a process. I had been in sports, so I had to get out of Boyertown because of hockey. I had to get out of Boyertown because of baseball. Even with Boyertown developing a hockey team and having great baseball, if it was going to be more than that, I was going to be traveling whether I liked it or not. And so working out, um, and just seeing other athletic guys that I was physically attracted to, and realizing that Boyertown is a small town and smaller then. Um, if I'm going to find that somebody, then it's gonna require travel. It's gonna require getting away from either other repressed people like me
Mm-hmm.
who weren't strong enough to say, this is, what my real life is going to be like, or just guys that would not have worked because, maybe they were, following me around in the showers, but I wasn't interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of a process than an event.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the whole thing, like the whole realization. And I think, when you look at all of the banned books today that talk about
Mm-hmm.
not a coming out but a coming of age
Mm-hmm.
process, that talk about things kids have done behind sheds or in the woods, or whether it's um, Bill Maher I never really liked him at first, but I'll tell you what, that guy's going to be the next celebrity president, because he talks about Hollywood making violent movie after violent movie after violent movie, and
Right.
then coming back and saying gun control.
Yeah. Yep.
Really?
Yep. I look at
Uh,
it this way. I look at it this way because my children know that I really like all kinds of crime drama. Okay. And movies that are dramatic and violent. And they say, Mom,
mm,
this is not you. So I have come up with a theory. I think it is cathartic. It is because I don't live in that world, and yet people are both this and the opposite. And so in my entertainment world, in my fantasy world, I can I can be part of that. I can enjoy
yeah.
that. I can let loose with whatever emotions are hiding in the other part of who I am, that
Mm,
is, that is nonviolent, that is peaceful, that is positive, that is whatever, in the other side, both sides now,
yeah.
in the other side, I can release, I feel those feelings and release that energy. And I think that's my rationale. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I had a male ex who can probably tell you the plot of every episode of SVU and Criminal Intent. Law and Order
Criminal
SVU
Minds?
and
Criminal
no,
Minds?
well, actually, possibly that one too.
Yeah,
I think he used to watch that one a lot too, but definitely because when I told him that I met Vincent D'Onofrio, he was beside himself.
yeah.
He was the male lead on Criminal Intent,
Okay.
and if you've ever seen the military movie, which is what got the guy his start, Full Metal Jacket with
Yeah.
R. Lee Ermey, he was Pyle.
Wow.
He, he
It's my
he
husband's
was the
favorite
guy.
movie. Yep.
Yeah, he was Pyle. I met that guy,
Wow.
and I when I met him, it was the night we talked about. It was the night that Hillary Clinton was on Saturday Night Live for the first time. There was a bit at the opening of they do this sketch comedy at the beginning of every episode, kind of like us in that they start with the thing. And you kind of know Saturday Night Live has just started, but they haven't said, "Hey, welcome to Saturday Night Live."
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say at the end of that bit, and that's when they go into the music and
Yep, yep.
what was his name? Uh, the old guy who was like 90 years old and still doing "It's Saturday Night Live." That guy, he was doing that from his home. He had a studio just like this from his home in Arizona.
I love it.
Um, but uh, the opening bit was Vincent D'Onofrio. They were doing a mock-up of the debates. And when Saturday Night Live comments in this fashion, it's accurate. The debate they were tossing the I think that's when they were using Barack Obama, the white guy that was using blackface, and they had they got their tit in a ringer for the blackface. They were tossing him easy questions. He was screwing it up, and then they were clapping anyway. And they were giving Hillary, difficult question, who was played by Amy Poehler,
Yep,
and she was nailing them.
yep.
And then they come back with a tougher follow up question,
Right,
and
right.
she felt like she was being interrogated.
Yep.
So you hear this ding ding, the music from Criminal Intent, and Vincent D'Onofrio walks out on stage and really gets in her face like he's playing
Yep,
bad cop,
yep.
and that was the whole joke. He's sitting backstage in his dressing room right aside of Hillary's, and the director of security for NBC says, "You know who that is?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the guy from Law and Order." And he goes, "No, that's Pyle." And I didn't
Wow.
realize it until the director said that.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, dude, you're Pyle." Yeah, and because in the police academy, we had an instructor who knew all those lines, and I never saw the
Wow.
movie yet. So one of my
Wow.
buddies did, and as we're getting chewed out, he's saying the line right alongside of the instructor. So that was my intro to Pyle. But
Very good.
um,
Very good.
I'm on a tangent.
Yeah, you went a little bit, so I'm going to pull you back in again as
Yeah,
Mrs. Stahl,
please.
right?
Yes, yes.
As Mrs. Stahl. Anyway,
Focus
one of
before
the
the end of
things I
class.
wanted to mention, yes, yes, one of the things I wanted to mention was one of our loyal supporters proposed. He said he wrote to me because he comments on our episodes, which just is such a compliment that he
I was
watches and
very grateful for that. Yeah.
I mean, just love it. I don't know if he'd appreciate my mentioning his name, so I won't. But he wrote to us this week and said the wisest statement. We're back to sexuality again, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, he wrote the wisest statement I ever heard regarding human sexuality is that it exists along a continuum with
Yes. Yeah.
exclusive heterosexuality at one end and exclusive homosexuality at the other. And everyone else of us is somewhere in between, including bisexuals, who would be
Yeah.
right in the middle.
Right.
And that's kind of an interesting thing that I wonder how many of us have entertained at any particular point. How did you feel about his statement, and where do trans people fit in that
So
continuum as you see
that's
it?
what I was going to add is that there's non-binary, there's pansexual,
Yeah.
there's
Where
and
do they
so
fit?
I think in that because when you talk about what are called cisgender roles, meaning that the stereotypical I'm a man, so I have to be masculine, or if I'm a man and I'm more feminine, then I'm automatically gay. But that might not be the case. But the straight guys are going to think that, that kind of thing. I think not only is there a left and right, but probably an up and down. That it's more of a
So
grid than
rather than a continuum, it might be more like a Venn diagram.
yeah,
Circles.
yeah, that could even be better. Yeah, um,
So I'll have to
because
ask
I
our
know.
supporter to create one. Sorry, I
Yeah,
interrupted you.
yeah, and no, that's fine. No, because when we were talking about today's youth, when I first met my son, his then girlfriend identified as pansexual,
Okay.
and even as experienced as I thought I was, I had no idea what the hell that meant.
Yep.
And
Yep.
he explained it to me that it was that she was more attracted to personality of the person than the
Yep.
physical attributes,
Right.
which means again she could be sexually active with both a male or a female, but was more into who that person was.
Right.
So I'm sitting back going, she's just bisexual and doesn't want to have sex with an asshole.
That makes sense. That
Yeah, and
makes a little
here's
bit of sense. But I think the most important thing about this discussion um, is that there is so there's not a lot of choice involved in
yeah,
into whom you're attracted.
yeah, that's and why, and that's why when I said, and not that you're using bad verbiage, but for society who wouldn't know better, saying that my sexuality is a choice
Yeah.
is far off because and I love when a straight guy says that because I convince them in a snap. I say, okay, so my being gay is something where I consciously made a decision over and I chose gay.
No,
Okay, well, that means
I
that
think you chose to it to accept it. I think that's what
no,
the
no, no,
choice
no.
is.
Based on
No?
no, what I'm saying is when the homophobic people say that it's a choice,
Hmm.
that it's not who you are. I'm
Hmm.
just being gay to rebel.
Yeah.
Then I say, okay, if it's a choice for me, then it was a choice for you. Tell us when you considered sucking dick.
Right.
And oh boy, do they say no, this is who I am real fast.
Yes. Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
convincing.
Exactly. And what
And
I
yeah,
was,
again,
and when I use the
sorry for
word
the verbiage.
choice, when I
Sorry for the
use the
verbiage.
word
I usually
choice,
use only on my own show, but it's to use
right.
that terminology
That works.
gives you the experience of how convincing my conversation is. But go
That
ahead.
that works. No, when I use the word choice, it's about choosing to come out
Oh yeah,
rather
yeah,
than
understood. Yep.
hiding it. That's the way
Yep.
I
Yep.
use the word choice. Because
No,
as my
no,
husband
I agree.
told me decades and decades ago, as a straight guy, he said nobody would choose in our society then, this was decades ago, in our society then would put himself or herself, but mostly himself, out there as gay on purpose. It just is too painful.
Right.
It's too difficult. It's too difficult. So
Well, that's
now
why.
listen.
That's why.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I know because one of us has to look at the clock and say, "Wow, look at the time."
There we
Uh,
go.
but
There we
that's
go.
why with me being a baseball umpire,
Yeah.
an ice hockey referee,
Yeah.
two jobs that are already not popular,
Yeah.
and then looking at law enforcement as a third option, which is the one that came to fruition. Why would I want to make myself any less desirable or any more hated?
We need to
You
talk about
know,
that. We need to talk more about your PTSD, but let
okay.
our audience know that we made a commitment
Yes.
to be a little more, what do you say, sensitive to other people's lives and time.
Schedules. Yeah.
So, what are we doing? We're recording this one. We're going to stop pretty
Yep.
much and come back
Yep.
again with part two of our discussion. And I'm already ready to talk about it. And I've got a third part that I want to talk about too. But we'll be back on Friday.
Yes. So what we're doing now is as we record these, we do still, Jane and I still do talk for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
but we split it up and we give you the opportunity for a bathroom break or to come back later and what have you. What you heard just now, will still be, you're going to hear this Tuesday. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the rest of this to go to not steal from an episode I did on my own show a couple of weeks ago, the Paul Harvey tribute. The rest of this story will be on Friday. And it's going to be like that every week now. We're still going to talk for an hour, but we're going to make it into 25 to 30, in this case 31, 43
Mm-hmm.
episodes, and then we'll split it up and let you watch or listen and enjoy one, and then have something to look forward to later in your week.
Sounds good. And by the way, really like the music that you added
Yeah, that
at the
was
end of episode 3. That was
yeah.
really cool.
It's the
And
one we used for
the
one and
Paul
Friday
Harvey
too.
episode, I have still to find. And your mother encourages me to find it because she says it's her absolute favorite. So
Oh
until
yeah,
next time,
yeah. All right, everybody.
okay,
And we'll
I'm
see
Jane
you.
Stahl.
I'm Yergz. This has been Both Sides Now.